We're joined on Cuse Countdown by the voice of the Flames, Alan York. Alan, thanks for coming on with us.
Good to be on with you guys anytime.
So I guess I'll start with, how should this be different from last year? Because clearly the Flames look to be a very different team than the team that Syracuse beat pretty handily 24-0 in week 1 last year.
Well, it's year 2 in Hugh Freeze's system. Talking to our coaches even going back to our Western Kentucky ball game, the improvements on all facets have been, I don't want to say, light years from what it was a year ago, but you can see the steady improvement, especially from the defensive side. Defensively, the last, 6-7 years hasn't been great for Liberty. And last year you could see Scott Simons, our defensive coordinator, start to implement his system, and it was a lot of the same guys we've had around and still is to this point here in 2020. But, different go around, with the changes that Syracuse has with Tommy not playing and Andre moving on. Again, it's just 2 players, but 2 vital people to both sides of the ball for Syracuse. And I think you mentioned that game last year, 24-0 shutout by the Orange. A lot of the players coming back have thought about that, and they want to atone for that and show that they can compete with the ACC. And again, Liberty's only in its 3rd year of FBS. So to be 4-0 and win a bowl game last year, probably on the fast track right now, but Hugh Freeze definitely has a lot to do with that.
Right. Like you said, Alan, things seem to be really looking up for the Liberty football program. They're 4-0 this year, like you mentioned, top 25 in the nation, both scoring and rushing, and coming off of a 33-point win last week. So as they head into this matchup against Syracuse, you kind of alluded to it as kind of moving backwards right now. How is the team feeling right now?
Team's feeling good. You mentioned some of those stats, and for Liberty to be among the best in FBS is phenomenal. And granted, 76, only half the FBS teams are playing, but still the Power Fives are playing. And for Liberty to be where they are statistically, even with the Power Fives playing and having really good teams, it just goes to show you where Liberty is right now from a competition standpoint. And but the one thing that Coach Freeze has steered away from the last couple of weeks, for the first time ever, Liberty football is receiving votes. And for a team that's never been ranked before to start getting votes, that's great for the fans. That's great for the media. It's great for the play-by-play guy to talk about it. But as Coach says, and I quote, it's rat poisoning. And he even went on record with us last week to say it's fake news. And we kind of chuckle about that. And, we're deciding, okay, do we put a press release out because we get votes? Well, no. Nobody cares if you get votes. Maybe we do for the first time ever, so our fans can have something to talk about. But let's be honest. I mean, until you're ranked, receiving votes is great, but let's be ranked first before we start making some noise. And so that's why Coach talked about it being fake noise. I don't want to talk about it. And his players, just like all good teams, players follow the lead of their coach, and they say the right things in the media, and our guys have done that.
So, yeah, the players are following Hugh Freeze's lead. That rat poison comment goes to show you that he wants more. But, I mean, this is still the first time in program history in the 3rd season, the FCS, that they're getting these votes. You've been there since 2010 calling games. How fun has it been to be and watch the progression of this team, especially since Freeze got here?
It's great. And we're all play-by-play guys that want to move on, and some of us are reporters that want to do the reporting thing. And for me, it's been a breath of fresh air getting to FBS. I mean, basketball and the other sports have been Division I, and we've been to NCAA tournaments and conference championships, and that's great. But the FCS level is great football too. And Liberty, since Danny Rocco was around in the late, turn of the century, 2006-07, really started to turn this program around. And since then, it's been a competitive team at the FCS level. Now, moving to FBS, 2017, we beat Baylor on the road to open up the season. And last year went to a bowl game and beat Georgia Southern. So it's kind of given my career a shot in the arm at 43 years old, knowing that it's kind of cool to be calling play-by-play for an FCS program that the school is behind, the community is behind. We have a great coach in Hugh Freeze. And I couldn't, ask for anything more of what we're doing right now. And being independent, that's a question we get to, guys, too. What's it like being independent? And Hugh Freeze, again, today in our latest media session, talked about being independent and not being landlocked to a conference schedule. And a conference schedule is great because you develop rivalries, which is phenomenal. But being an independent, it kind of gives you the autonomy to do what you want to do with your schedule. And so that's kind of gives it a new and neat, fresh perspective each year, knowing you're going to play some different teams you might not have seen before.
Well, right now you're not only calling an FBS team, you're calling a 4-0 team in the Liberty Flames. But when you take strength of schedule into account, what really do you make of Liberty's record right now?
We're 4-0, and the next game is Syracuse. I'm not just giving you lip service, but football games are hard to win. I don't care who you're playing against. I mean, we could be playing against my alma mater, D3 Guilford College, who I played football for, and you still have to go and compete. Again, we're getting a lot of the questions this week. You know, can Liberty win? Should they win? They're predicted to win by whatever sports book you look at. But again, more rat poisoning for us, for sure. Yes. I saw a tweet the other day. Okay, what do you make of Liberty's record? Their opponents are 1-11, 1-12, whatever it is. But you still have to go and win games. Has it been the most competitive beginning of the schedule? No. But with COVID, outside of the Power Fives, you can make that argument. You get games how you can get them. And luckily, Liberty's been able to keep all their games intact except for a couple, and including the ACC. I mean, Syracuse, NC State, and Virginia Tech all had us as +1s before the year or as a non-conference team, but now they're keeping them as the +1. So tip of the cap to administrations on that to keep those there. So we're excited to be 4-0 despite who we have played regardless. We look at more so of where Liberty has improved as it has been. Of course, you would expect me to say, or then what it has been, okay, who have you played? Nobody around Liberty is talking about that, but they're just talking about the nuances of what we've seen improve from year 1 to year 2 under Hugh Freeze.
All right, and Alan, let's talk about the signal caller for a second, because Malik Willis has been extremely dynamic and probably very fun to watch for you this year so far. He's leading the team. He led the team in rushing last week. He's averaging 7.2 yards per carry. Syracuse themselves on the defensive side, they've had some trouble defending the run this year. Mm-hmm. How can we kind of expect to see Willis used against the Orange this week?
Well, for Malik, let's go in a number of directions here. 2 weeks ago, he did not play. He separated his left elbow, which is his non-throwing arm, was fitted with a brace. So took a week off from game competition, and Chris Ferguson started against North Alabama at Rising FCS program. And then last week, Malik did come back and was rusty. I think he was 11 for 22, something like that, for like over 180 some odd yards. So the numbers weren't great. And he overshot some targets that were wide open. And coach just said, look, he was rusty and nothing more to it than that. But one thing Malik does, he's able to extend plays. I had an interview with somebody up in Syracuse earlier this week, and they were talking about that exact same thing. And record-setting quarterback the last 4 years, Stephen Calvert, has graduated. He was a predominant pocket passer. And so he did not allow himself to extend plays. Malik sits in that pocket. If he sees break down, he'll get you an extra or 2 first downs that typically a normal quarterback who's just in the pocket would not. So that's kind of what he is. I'm not comparing him to Mike Vick, but he's our version of Mike Vick, if you will. And the fact that he can scramble and make things happen with his legs, which we haven't had in maybe since the first 2 years I've been here.
Well, Alan, it is said that the 2 most important parts of a football team are quarterback and head coach. So I'll go back to Hugh Freeze. At Ole Miss, he took that program to new heights. They were as high as 3rd in the nation in 2015 and defeated Alabama in back-to-back seasons. That's 14 and then 15. The only 3 other coaches to beat a Nick Saban team twice in 2 consecutive years, Les Miles, Steve Spurrier, and Lloyd Carr. Are we seeing a similar turnaround, do you think, with Hugh Freeze and Liberty?
Pretty good company of those names you just mentioned there. For Liberty, winning has been part of the culture. Turner Gill, led Liberty to the FCS playoffs for the first time in 2014, decided to retire 2 years ago. And during Hugh Freeze's time away from football, he did some public speaking. And to kind of dive into a little bit of the culture at Liberty, students are required to attend what we call convocation 3 times a week. Obviously now it's done virtually, but it's a 90-minute program with, praise worship songs and speakers, and just to wait for the whole community to connect. And occasionally you'll see our athletics department go to these, depending upon the speaker and who you might want to hear speak. But we've had Hillary Clinton, we've had Ben Carson, we've had Donald Trump before he was the president. Darryl Strawberry has been here to speak. So it's a really cool thing. And Hugh Freeze, during his time away from football, was one of our speakers on his kind of path getting back into coaching with his wife, Jill. And so Liberty's always been kind of on the map when Hugh Freeze left here. And so you started hearing things when Turner Gill decided to retire. Hugh Freeze was one of the first names that came up in it. And again, he's had some things in his life that he's had to apologize for. And I'm sure that there's not a day that goes by that he doesn't think about some of those times when he was at Ole Miss. And he even references Ole Miss. We even play Ole Miss next year. So I can't imagine what that's going to be like for Hugh. And he still speaks highly of Ole Miss, and they do of him. You go to his Twitter account, and the times he'll post, he's got a lot of Ole Miss fans that still comment to him and say, "Hey, we miss you, Coach. Hope you're doing good." So he has resurrected his career, no doubt, and numbers do not lie. He wins football games. He's got a great staff around him. He's great with people. He's phenomenal with the media to work with. And again, we're judged by wins and losses. And you look at every step in his career, he's won games. He's doing the same thing here at Liberty. And we're just tickled that he's our head coach and leading our football program.
Well, we'll see if he can pick up another win on Saturday. Alan York, voice of the Flames. Have a great call.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.